Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Not going to Greentext this one. I'm not going to go into what my profession is or any details about it, but a portion of it has to do with my story. I have not been snuck up on in 5 years. 5 years ago, I was conducting a training exercise during which I was supposed to be pulling security, standing watch over my patrol during recovery operations in the wood line in what we call a patrol base, which is essentially an area that a military unit rests and recovers while in a hostile area. I ended up falling asleep. I was very green, new to patrolling, and I was so very tired. It was around 3 a.m., the second night of a sleepless and foodless training event designed to break our unit down and test of mental agility and resilience, then test us with complex tasks. Anyways, one of the instructors who was playing Op 4, opposing force, came up on my position and woke me up, informed me I had failed my buddies in the patrol, and punished me very severely. The level of punishment was close to traumatizing, and ever since I have never been snuck up on again. I have since become both completely restless when pulling security and a very light sleeper. I also have since developed a very acute sense of when someone is trying to move towards me, even if it is in a non-hostile way, like to say hello or something. I can't quite describe what it's like, it's just that I can feel it in the air. I do not believe it is a paranormal feeling. I think it must have something to do with my senses. Regardless, I have since spent many nights in dark wildernesses, by myself, but usually with a team, in unfamiliar places. I recently finished a stint as a land navigation instructor for a well-known course, and one of my jobs was to go into the course during night land nav, which takes place, of course, during dark hours, and find lost personnel. I have absolutely no problems whatsoever with dark woods. I have had run-ins with wildlife as well. As personnel who were attempting to find me, the point being the woods have not frightened me in a long time. Recently, I volunteered to be a camp counselor during the time I had between transferring stations at a church camp. When the time came for the seniors to have their camp out, it was natural that I was chosen to lead it. The camp out was fine, typical camp out, but when we sat around the fire, I felt it. I felt someone approaching me. I turned around and knew I would see someone. I knew I had to. This feeling was just as clear to me as sight itself. But there was nothing. Not even when I pitched the sky against the foliage did any silhouettes appear. There was nothing. My campers could tell I was confused, but I shrugged it off. But it happened again, and again. And each time, I did not see anything or detect anything. I specifically placed myself in a position to draw out confidence from anyone who could have been pursuing me or attempting to play a prank on my group in order to try and tempt them out of their spot and react very swiftly to it. But it never happened. I was sure I would at least hear movement towards or away from my position, as I had been trained, but it just never happened. Regardless, I kept getting that feeling. That night, the males got into their tent, and the females got into theirs, and we went to sleep. I woke up very shortly after. To what I said at the time was the noise of somebody maneuvering around our tent. Who knows, though? It could have just been that feeling. I thought the girls were trying to play a joke on us. I organized the boys to slowly and carefully prepare to bust out of the tent and catch the girls in the act. But when we did, they were in their tent asleep. The boys trusted me a lot, and they were rightly freaked out. But I told them I was just mistaken, although in my own heart, I was dead set that someone or something, an animal, although I was positive it was a human being, was in our area attempting to execute some sort of action on our tent. We went back to the tent, and as the boys fell asleep, my sense surged. I tried to ignore it, but my better sense would not allow it. My heart was pounding. My body was pitched into a very active state. I got up as quietly as I could and made movement to the front of our tent. I woke up one of the boys, the one I trusted the most, called him number 1, and left him with a contingency plan. Pretty much said if I don't return within 20 minutes, or you hear me attacked, get the entire group together and light the fire, stay by the fire, and call the rest of the camp. Of course, he freaked, and as I left the tent, he woke up the other boys, and they watched me as I went on to find whatever it was. I basically pulled a simple dogleg. First, I grabbed the wood-cutting axe, which I had placed right outside of my tent, and I made movement towards the thickest patch of vegetation I could find, then turned 90 degrees and traveled as fast as I could without making an audibly discriminating amount of noise 2 terrain features away, then circumvented the campsite and arrived right back around 10 meters away from the front of the tent, nestled between a tree trunk and a thicket. I knew I had performed the maneuver properly, as the boys who were all peeking out of the tent were arguing with each other that I had left and was either coming back soon or was never coming back. My plan was this: wait in my position for whatever person was trying to disturb our tent, let them attempt contact on the tent, and then counter their action with my own. A wood chopping axe is not much for an offensive weapon, especially in the dark, but the heavy end would at least be good for a knockdown, so I could roll some proper groundwork on whoever it was. That was my plan anyways. I sat in this position for more than 20 minutes, which was my cutoff time for my plan that I left my number 1, but he did not follow through, which was fine as I was within the bounds of my counter-offensive plan anyways, so I stayed in position. I sat for a number of hours, and the boys eventually fell asleep. I sat, watching, waiting, ready to pounce. But as my adrenaline ebbed and my thoughts began to bounce around in my head as they always do when on patrol, I started to doubt my sense and began to tire. Not that I was falling asleep, I was just losing interest and faith in my actions. What happened next is, I suppose, the climax of the story. The feeling returned very hard, although it was more of a feeling towards the tent. I knew something was heading for it, and it was a deeper feeling than that. I knew that something was heading for the boys. I knew that something was about to attempt an offensive action on the boys. I have in the past very successfully defended positions based on this feeling alone, and I have never been wrong in 5 years. I knew it was about to happen. My adrenaline kicked into high gear. I could feel my neck start to get sore on the side under my jaw, which always happens to me when I get very, very primed. And I was absolutely ready to go. I just switched modes. I went from recon to assault. I went from maritime to combat. I let the axe down on the ground. It's a strange thing, but I knew that it would only hinder me. I have been trained with firearms, knives, e-tool, and my body, but not an axe. It would just hinder my chances at success. I could sense it on the other side of the tent. I knew it was there. I knew it was enacting its action now. I went hard, straight line towards the corner of the tent, and button hooked in. I did not want any space to assess the situation before I attacked. I wanted a fully aggressive, offensive action against whatever it was. I wanted surprise, and I wanted to get my hands on the person or whatever. I got my hands on it. I didn't really utilize any takedown method. I just plowed it into the ground and was moving to get into a top mount. But touching it, it just wasn't a man, and it wasn't an animal that I knew of. First off, an animal is very fast and very reactive. The odds of snatching an animal like that are slim to nil. But I had gotten it. But when I touched it, I can't really recall how to describe it, but it wasn't anything I knew. I had already attacked it, and my training told me to press the advantage, but I simply could not. Of course, this description of combatives is going to sound sexual, but whatever, grow up. I let go and scooted back, opening my legs and lifting up my hips. I was too scared to continue to attack it, and moved back frantically and wound up on my back. And my body just automatically assumed to the downward position to accept an enemy combatant in hand-to-hand combat with as much defensive options as possible. Whatever it was, ran to the wood line and turned around. I had scared it. I had dominated it, I guess. But then I had backed off, and it could sense that I was no longer in control of the pitch of the combat. It could tell I had resolved to defense and not offense, so it sat. I couldn't really see it. I didn't dare move from my position to try and pitch it against the sky and reveal some familiar silhouette. Or perhaps I was too scared to see that it might be some hideous, nightmarish outline. But there we sat, staring at each other. After a few seconds, I sprang back up into my fighting stance. But it stayed and didn't react. It was no longer intimidated. It wasn't even reacting. It was very calm. Not a good sign. I could not go to it. I could not engage it. I did not know what to do. I had so much training under my belt to fight human beings, but from what I just felt, this was not a human being. All I could do was slowly back off, get back into the tent, seal the zipper, and protect my boys. That's all I could do. All I could do was wait, confused and scared. As soon as first light came over the horizon, my sense ebbed. I knew it was gone. That morning we packed up and went back to the main camp. I immediately told the priest. I did not want to tell the boys, although they asked me what had happened the previous hours. But he said it was a prank some local was playing on me. I've not been that scared since. It hasn't affected anything that I do in my profession. I still go out and find lost individuals, trying to complete land nav at night to their dismay, and I still train within the wood line. But I just can't recall that night without deep puzzlement and a bit of fear. I don't know what it was. I don't know why it never came back. I don't know how I couldn't detect it directly. I only had contact with it for a second. I was in the guard for about 5 seconds. And when we had sat staring at each other, that only lasted around 10 seconds. The whole length of contact was around 20 seconds maximum. It just freaks me out sometimes when I am alone in my home. Only when I am in my home. Not even when I am alone in the dark woods, just when I am at home.
Someone had a vaguely similar experience to me once in a different thread, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Was strangely coincidental but cool nonetheless. Was in the army for several years, enlisted. was stationed at Fort Lewis in Tacoma from 2008 to 2011. Dense forestry, scantily populated subsection of the region, as is typical of certain types of bases depending upon what units are stationed and trained there. Tallest trees I have ever seen in my life, and also the most dry, cutting cold I have ever experienced. Cannot stress enough how extraordinarily dense the woods are here. You can hardly see through a small stretch of woodlands even. Someone could stand on the opposite side of a patch of woods that is 15 feet wide and shine a light, and you absolutely would not see it. I stayed in the barracks because it was much cheaper, and because I was not married at the time. Barracks are oriented in such a way that the primary exit is facing an immense stretch of forest. Rangers trained there doing I do not know what. But otherwise, it was no go in terms of entering it. None of the units I knew of even did land navigation training there because, for one, there were supposedly still undetonated, albeit old, ordnance in the area as well. Because I was underage at the time. Me and a buddy of mine, who was also underage, used to use this area to hide our booze, because the barracks would be inspected every now and again. We explored the forest back there with our lights several times, and actually came upon a stream. What we would do is use a piece of cord, tie it around a bottle of booze, and hang it as far up in a tree as we could get it off of a branch. Reason being, they would occasionally take a cursory glance through the area directly behind the barracks, just in case people were doing exactly what it is we were doing, essentially. Regularly go back there late at night, when one of our friends is on duty. Way we would mark the particular tree is we would dig a fairly deep ditch right at the base of it, that you could easily see, or more often, step in order to locate it. But generally always had a vague idea of where it was to begin with, so it never took very long to find. Always would be just one of us to go out, so as to not raise suspicion from the fire guard, as different units had different guys roaming around different hallways, and you never know who will report something they view as out of the ordinary. It is about 11 p.m. on a Friday night. December, the week before Christmas. Most guys are on leave, but me and two of my buddies do not take leave because we have no family, so we are going to get wasted. Only second time ever I have been the guy to go fetch the bottle, but I venture out, bitter cold, travel about a quarter mile into the wood line, and I shit you not, my flashlight starts to dim, eventually shuts off completely, take out my phone. This was before smartphones were prevalent, so it is this small LG phone. Use it for light. Battery starts dying, frantically turning it off and then on again, to try to preserve as much battery as possible. Completely dies. Just absurdly bad luck. My heart is racing at this point because I have become disoriented. I have no idea which direction I came from. No luck at all finding the booze. No idea where I am in relation to the barracks. Cannot see 2 feet in front of me. Having a panic attack for the first time in my life. I literally sat down and tried to collect myself. Absolutely freezing. At this point, I am trying to select just one direction to head in. I figure that is a good idea. Also start getting mad at myself for not shooting a text to someone while I still had battery. Try turning the phone on infinity times. Panicking more. Obviously will not turn on. Then I hear a fairly loud crash, like a branch completely broke off from a tree and hit the ground. Then total silence. as in no birds, nothing. I held my breath at this point because I am trying to listen for something. Hear 3 distinct sounds, and to me, they are absolutely footsteps from something. Does not sound huge or anything, but I am dead scared. After a while, I had decided I was just going to wait it out for someone to come yelling for me. But now I realize I should move, or yell myself. But I am legitimately frozen and cannot talk, cannot explain it. But it has happened to me before. When my dog scared me by getting into the bathroom while I was showering, and I thought it was a person while I was home alone. So I am sitting scared out of my mind, and it is still dead quiet after I heard the series of steps. Then I hear a phone go off. Generic ringtone like an actual phone bell. I yell, "Michael!" my buddy's name. No response. But then hear a very fast series of footsteps absolutely headed right at me. I get up and just bolt the way I was facing while seated. Can hear somebody behind me the entire time I am running. I have tears coming down my cheeks and snot coming out of my nose. Can hear them panting behind me and pushing aside brush, etc. The only good luck I had that night, and the best luck I have ever had in my life, is that I see a street light and emerge right in the middle of a road that goes to the DFAC. I run across the road and do not see anything in the woods. No one else comes out from the wood line. I ended up jogging back to my barracks and I puked when I got back, and my friends were legitimately scared as well. Decided not to drink. Big kicker is, when everyone gets back from leave, we have a weirdly times formation in the middle of the day. Girl from the lab unit was beaten very badly right outside of the DFAC 2 days after this happened to me. Thankfully, I'm not a girl, but I have no idea if it was the same person or what they would have done to me if it was.
Holy moly, you almost got my dude. Thanks for posting also. If you have any more, definitely post if you feel up to it.
That's the only thing like that has ever happened to me, in all honesty. I still tell people about it sometimes because I've never felt like that in my entire life. I really thought I was going to die. My friend brought it up the other day and this thread reminded me of it right off the bat.
Be me 6 years ago. 18 dumbass decide to join army, go engineer because I always thought that was cool. Assigned to a company, 35th Battalion for OCUT. Basic training plus job training all in one. It is at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, in the middle of nowhere. We are Innawoods for land navigation practical exam. Have to go out and find a series of points in groups of 4. We are all grouped by height because of stride length. So short people do not get left behind. I am 6'4". So I am in one of the tallest groups. 2 of the other 3 guys with me are pretty good at land nav. The third is kind of an idiot, but he tells good jokes. We are strolling along. Find 4 out of 5 points within the first 45 minutes. Decide to go hang around somewhere by ourselves, rather than come back to where the drill sergeants are waiting. Look at the map. Something interesting about half a kilometer outside the training area. It is marked as a mine, and labeled Old Indian Lead Mine. Oh man, that sounds awesome, let us go check it out. All we have to do is follow Devil's Creek a few kilometers north-ish. And the Old Indian Mine is set into the side of Devil's Ridge. Yeah, nothing struck us as dangerous about that. No need for compass and pace count. We make a marker so we will know what our exact position was when we return down the valley. We head north outside the area that we were allowed to be in, laughing, chatting, not really worried about anything except the big boars that live around there. We hit the north edge of the area, and we know for sure that is what it is, because there is a line of bright yellow warning signs staked into the ground and stapled to all the trees warning us to not go further. I had studied all the maps, and I knew it was not an impact area. So I reassured everyone that it was okay. But that is when I first felt like something was off, like we were doing something very, very wrong. Keep walking along the creek. It is at the bottom of a valley, steep 30-foot hills on either side. Climbable, but only with difficulty. This whole area is completely impassable to vehicles, barely navigable on foot, unless you stick to the valley bottom. Notice as the other guys are talking that there is no more bird song. But do not point it out because I do not want to sound like an idiot or a coward. Cannot shake the growing feeling that we are not supposed to be there. We keep seeing chunks of concrete and big stones laid out in squares, like old house foundations. Figure the creek washed them there or something. After like half an hour, we get to the bottom of the Devil's Ridge. The creek turns 90 degrees, but if we keep going up the ridge the way it was headed, we should find the mine. I start to get caught up in the excitement again, speculating what we will find, if anything. Maps are over a decade old, so who knows if it is even still there. The dumb funny guy in our group, who I will call Cope, not his name but it is related to his nickname, says he is tired of walking and does not want to climb the ridge, does not really care about the mine. We call him weak and go up without him. The ridge is kind of muddy since it had rained recently. We are having a bit of trouble climbing in some spots. Catch my hand on a thorn vine. It starts bleeding, and I leave a big splotch of blood on a tree. Laugh it off. Wrap it up with duct tape, I always had some on me. Keep climbing. Finally, we got up there. There is a terrace of sorts cut into the ridge. Some old rusted metal equipment half buried. Old concrete with rebar sticking out. This is not a Native American lead mine. There is an aperture cut into the side of the ridge, which we did not immediately see because it was partially covered with greenery, etc. It is an entrance to some kind of bunker or something. Cannot really see inside, it is pitch dark. The rusted iron gate has fallen or been knocked off its hinges. Agree we should not go in because it might collapse, and we do not have our flashlights. Start poking around for cool souvenirs. There is a bunch of little bits of things, mostly metal stuff that is really rusted. It is all the sort of things you would carry in your pockets. Pens, spirals from notebooks, etc. Not that strange since the valley floods pretty high every few years. The other two guys, who I will call James and Williams, again, not actually their names, are also looking around. I sort of instinctively stayed away from the mouth of the cave. Nothing interesting to take. I hear, "Anon, come look at this." Williams is pulling back the foliage from the entrance. Just inside is a big pile of bones. Looks like a lot of deer and some I cannot identify in the poor light. Williams and I immediately started looking around, thinking maybe there is a cougar or a bear or something, and we are on its turf. Suddenly James yells, "Fuck!" Look over at him. He is holding something rusty. He sort of stumbles over. It is a bunch of old dog tags. A very long moment passes between us. Williams tells him, "There are bones in there." James looks at the bones. His eyes go wide. He starts to say something, and then he just sort of turns and walks a few paces away and throws up. Now I'm freaking out in a pretty big way. I say, "What the fuck, man?" James just shakes his head and says really, really emphatically that we have to fucking go. We start making our way down the hill. Cope is there, throwing rocks at a stick. He looks up when he hears us coming down and opens his mouth to say something, but the words sort of turn into a shriek as he points up at the top of the ridge. I have never seen anyone look that scared in my life. I turn to look. There is something picking its way quickly down the hill, like a horse covered in matted rat fur, but with longer legs. I do not stop to look at it. Just jump down the rest of the slope and start running down the valley. Check over my shoulder after a couple strides, just to be sure the others saw it too. They are running. It is stopped at the tree where I cut my hand, turn around and keep fucking booking it. Can hear the other guys behind me cursing and sprinting. Thank God we have been running so much for the Army physical fitness test. After maybe 10 minutes of panic and adrenaline, we hit the line of yellow signs. Start to slow down. Chance another longer look behind me. Williams James. No Cope. No thing. Fuck. 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 The thought, I will never leave a fallen comrade, burns in my mind. Not sure why I thought it was a good idea, but I start to turn around and go back for him. William starts screaming to keep going. Fuck, I am not bitch made. I run to the signs and look back the way we came. Nothing. Back to where the creek bends like 500 yards away. Williams runs up and starts dragging me back. We go back towards the training area. The land nav course NCOs are riding along the top of the ridge on ATVs, looking for people in trouble. So we climb the ridge and run along the trail until we find one. Start explaining. Say we got lost and ended up over there. He tells us it was probably a bear and radios it in, then takes off in the direction we told him. We follow the ridgeline back towards the start point. Other NCOs pass us going the other direction. A couple drill sergeants from another platoon finally calmed down enough to ask James what he saw in the bones. He hesitantly says he thought he saw a human skull buried in there. We start rationalizing, trying to assure ourselves everything is okay, still worried about Cope. We reach the start point. The drill sergeants are waiting and asking us a bunch of questions. Expect to get yelled at, but they are super serious. We wait with the rest of the unit. Privates are trickling back out of the woods as they finish the course. One of the drill sergeant's phone rings. She answers it. A lot of yelling follows. Apparently, Cope just walked out of the woods like 10 miles away on a range somewhere, missing his PC hat and some of his stuff, like his dog tags. We are shook and try to pretend it did not happen. Drill sergeants do not want word getting out that we lost a private, so they tell everyone not to talk about it. Finish the test and go back to the barracks. Cope does not come back. One day we find all his shit is just out of the barracks. We are told he was sent to another unit since he did not pass land nav. At this point, Williams, James, and I had rationalized things to ourselves, saying it was a bear or something and deer bones. Though I asked other trainees from other units in the coming months, no one from the other engineer units had heard of him. I never saw him again, and you can take that for what you will. I'm not even sure about what I saw anymore, and I haven't talked to Williams for over 5 years. James was killed in a drunk driving incident, from what I heard on Facebook. I wouldn't even think about it much, but I keep seeing other stories on here from soldiers and other people who've seen things like this in the deep Missouri woods. I'm not very superstitious or anything, but I come on /X because of stories which trigger this memory. I don't know if I want to remember more or forget it entirely and go on with my life. I haven't been back to Missouri since I got out of the army, and I don't go in the woods by myself ever.
I've pissed something off in the woods, and it's been my entertainment for 2 years. Sup/X/K/here. For context, I've had multiple run-ins with some sort of thing in the woods over the span of 2 years and have done a few threads on /X/ in the past to try to figure out what it is. So here's the shorthand version. Anger thing in 2018. We both live in the general area, and I like this abandoned mining site. So whenever I hear it while hiking, I dump about 5 rounds in its direction so it knows to keep its distance. Seems to work so far. In July of 2020, I took my industry buddy up to an old mine for a nice time in Innawoods. Always carry rifle with me when out. Hear thing again after making camp. To note, this thing sounds like a mush of a moose call, a bear. Either a cougar or a guy screaming very hoarsely in a wolf. Not quite, but that is all I can think of to help visualize it. And it is fucking loud. I mean, if you hear it 200 meters away, it sounds 150 feet away. But you can hear it moving during the breaks, so you know how far it is to define how loud it is. At 200 meters away, the sound reverberates through your chest, like if a high-caliber weapon went off or a mortar. So anyway, thing calls out. The initial call is always the loudest, and the ones that continue afterward are usually half volume, still loud but less bassy. Buddy panics. Probably shit himself and dead sprints to truck. I do as well, but forget our fire roaring in an abandoned truck's engine block. Double back to put out fire. Buddy, who I should mention straight up domed a dude during the earlier riots in Los Angeles. No problem. Loses his absolute goddamned mind seeing this. Begs me to just leave. Smokey the Bear says no. From the time it took me to run the 50-round foot to the truck and fire. This thing closed 150 or so meters on a 45-degree slope. Oh no, calls out again, it is close. Dump about 15 or 20 green, tip 556 in its direction. In a mix of panic and rage, immediately switches to dog barking, like a dog bark that was further away than the noise. Fire gets put out. We get the fuck out. Buddy has nightmares for 3 months after and gets really on edge to the point of yelling to stop talking about it and how he wants to nuke that whole area. When someone, usually me, mentions it. Since then, I've had these weird urges to go to specific parts of the mountains here. If I try to ignore them, they just get worse and I feel miserable. Eventually, I give in, as it usually gets worse at night, which is cool because I have something to look forward to at least once a month. I have some more encounters I can share and shit if it pleases you fucks. But all I want to know is this. Do I stand a chance to kill this thing or make it into a homie? I don't give a shit what it is, although knowing what I'm up against would be a plus. Additionally, I did 2 tours in northern Iraq and Syria with the Corps, and some secret squirrel contract shit in Ukraine. All my city's vagrants know and fear me. I also teach pistol, carbine, CQC, and Nightland Nav courses on the weekends with a local tack industry company for extra dinero, so you bet your ass my skills are sharp. Also to note, ideally, if I can kill this thing, I'd like to cut off its head and set it on fire upon a pike while I insert my dominance playing an audio mix of the Waco siege tapes, that German numbers girl, and some fucked up screaming as a warning to any more of these things, but having some weird Ai Lul Mao spooky cryptid homie would be a plus. I'm fucking pissed off from when I worked search and rescue after I got out and found normal good people in fucked up death poses or the grief of their families. I want to make this thing pay or kill pedos. Yes, I'm drunk.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.